good morning, and welcome to The Vantage Point. I am one of your hosts, Jennifer Rogers. I'm sitting with Crystal Dunn, Takoya Porter, and Dr. Jessica Mosley. And today we are talking about 21st century dating. I don't know, I mean, dating in the 21st century is very, very different than when I feel like we dated in the 1900s. No, I'm just kidding. But
speak for yourself.
So I want
to.
we're doing a singles conference February 11th and 12th. So go to turningpointfwc.com to sign up. But we're doing a singles conference, and this has really had me doing some research about singles today and how they interact and what do relationships really, what are they built on and what do they look like? And so in my research, I found that one, singles ministries in the church are almost non-existent. And the singles ministry, because I did join a bunch of them, actually. It's very interesting.
Oh, gosh.
They're either super, super carnal or super, super spiritual, but there's nothing that deals with the whole idea of, you know, what do I do if I want to get married? It's either you're going to be satisfied with Jesus, or we just going to shake them up with everybody and anybody that wants to be available. Shake them up. So, somebody had posted something. We did a live couple weeks, about last week or so, with a couple that dated in the church. And it was interesting because they dated for 3 years and nobody knew. Nobody but their parents, their pastors, and just a couple of close friends. Oh, and I thought that's just so unheard of today. Right? If you don't post them on Facebook, your relationship doesn't even exist. Right? So I just thought that was so unheard of. But somebody posted on Facebook some practical advice for Christians. Okay, so I'm going to read this practical advice. And I'm just going to start with, I agree with none of this, but practical advice. It says, if you share a common faith with a person of interest, but you look for more signs of compatibility before going forward. If you find yourself in love, yet swimming upstream through current incompatibility, perhaps you should consider defining the relationship. It's okay to remain congenial when you discover too many signs of incompatibility, such as lots of unshared interest, different outlooks in places in life, different ways of unwinding and relaxing, dissimilar needs for friends and socializing, vastly different staunch political views, unmatched desire for intimacy, different lifestyles, which that doesn't make any sense to me, vastly different fitness goals, which is really funny, different ways of dealing with stress and anger, large gaps in age, varying attitudes towards life, compatible personality traits, dissimilar attitudes toward attending family gatherings, unmatched needs for affection, different goals for developing family, and large differences in managing money. And so after I read this, I thought, you're going to be by yourself forever, okay? Because honestly, I am so glad I didn't marry somebody like me.
Oh my gosh.
That thought everything that I thought the same way, right? I think there are some, well, first I'm trying to figure out, well, how are you in love? What are you in love with? If we got all these lists of things, that would be a problem. What are you in love with? Just their body? Because at that point, that's all you got left. But when you think about dating, you know, what are you looking for? I mean, what is a real foundation for dating today?
Well, I want to go back to this because I read this online, and I started reading it out loud to my husband. And I was like, what are your thoughts on this? I said, because I think it would be very boring to be married to somebody just like myself, you know? And not for the same reasons that Dr. Jessica says. She says I'm boring.
I never said you was boring.
That's terrible.
I didn't say that. When did I say that?
Okay,
I must have just been rambling off like Jenny and Takoya.
We will come back. But when I read that and I'm listening to, first of all, that was posted by someone we know who is married, right? So they are saying this from inside a marriage, not outside.
Is this their first or second marriage?
It's their first
marriage. And only, preferably.
Shout out, Jason.
Yes.
Look, I was like,
he knows what we're talking about.
Yes.
Oh,
so,
did he?
But it provoked conversation because I picked one and I said, we don't relax the same way. I said, how do you relax? And you know, he has different hobbies, I have different hobbies, but I'm okay with that. I don't think that would disqualify us for a relationship in marriage, you know, or if we were dating. I don't mind going to do some of the things that he does and he doesn't either. So I'm just making my way through that list. That was one of them. It's hard to say in marriage that you have different, let's say, fitness goals.
You better not say it.
You know? So to me, if you're dating,
Yeah.
I'm not dating what I'm not attracted to.
Right.
You know? And dating, I mean, I know some people that may be the same size, male and female, when they got married, but majority are not. You know, so I think you evolve with that. So I had some issues with that, with agreeing to everything on that post.
What do y'all think?
Well, I agreed with its premise. The initial paragraph was about basically you need more than salvation to be compatible.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you know, being saved is not a qualification for us to now make a marriage work.
Right.
It just, life doesn't work like that.
Right.
And I think that was the premise he started with about compatibility. Now, how he defines compatibility, I think he defined it through his perspective, honestly.
Absolutely.
You know, those might have been deal breakers for him. I don't know. Good job, Micah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Shout out to Micah.
for me personally, I think in general, if you're going to post advice like to the general population, then you got to say, okay, you know, some of these may not be absolutes.
Yeah.
And I think he might even agree to that, that it's not absolutes, it was a status. But I think since we're discussing it as an absolute, of course, you know, I'm looking at some of these, I'm like, yeah, I'd be divorced. My husband or never married. I guess I'd just be single. He's always liked to work out. That was never it, you know. But some of these would be deal breakers. Like, large differences in managing money may not be a deal breaker, but it is something you have to come to a consensus on. You have to learn how to do it together and who should be in charge of the money. Or the attending family gatherings is huge for me. Yeah. Being able to make sure, like, I want our whole family at family gatherings. That's important to me. So if he, when we were dating, was always like, no, that would have been a red flag for me. So some of these, I can see where he's headed. Like I said, you know, I don't know if he took days writing this status or minutes, but I agree with the premise. You do have to look beyond.
We share the same
yeah.
thing. Yeah. Dr. Jessica.
Okay. So coming in behind that, I just agree with everything that she just said, because one of the things is, I remember this guy I was dating. This was years ago. No, it was decades plus ago. And he had a list, right? And one of his lists was, I want my girl to have a lot of education. I want her to be able to, it was just a whole bunch of stuff that I was not at the time, you know? And a lot of times people grow into certain things, or like, you know how people, they're not fit, or they be like, well, I'll never date somebody that's, I've met plenty of people that said that, but now you look at their spouse and you're like, dang, that ain't nothing that you used to tell me that you wouldn't date, you know? Or even, but I think that I will never date outside. I was young and I was dating a guy that was not of my faith. And my grandmother was like, you know what's going on? And this, you know, she was like, but I just liked him, right? So I just think it's just certain things that, I don't know, and even in this day and time, it's so weird dating because, like you said, everybody wants to be on social media. I mean, my next relationship will not be a secret, but it'll definitely be private. I won't be like, oh, we're here. You'll never know what I'm doing or who I'm doing it with. I mean, you know, cause, I mean, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna be. I mean, I'm gonna be accountable to who I'm supposed to be accountable to, but it's none of your business. Because a lot of relationships break up, you know, like, why did you say that? Why did you, it's like,
I just know when people post on social media and then all of a sudden all the pictures of that person is gone and they no longer are with them, I want an explanation because I'm invested.
And you know what, let me tell you what else happened. I had a friend.
I'm just saying.
I had a friend, she used to post pictures of her and her guy. They would be laying in the bed, watching TV or just doing things. Oh, this feels right, blah, blah, blah. And now you're not with him. And she got a new guy. And she's like, well, she said, you know, it's a lot of hate going on. Nobody be happy for you. I'm like, girl, this is the fifth dude. I don't know to be happy or not. You know? So I'm not even going to comment because I'm like, I'm constantly commenting on somebody different.
I think dating has completely evolved, you know? And
What do you mean by evolved?
I think, like, if I look at that list, or listen to that list, to me, the older you get, the shorter that list gets.
Oh, yeah.
And for many different reasons.
Absolutely.
One, because after a certain age, you're not changing. You might be a little more flexible, but most of that, at 40 plus, you're not changing. What's in you is in you, you know? And I think you look for somebody who can work with how you are, and you work with them. You don't think like that in your 20s. I didn't. You know, are we compatible? No, I love you.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out where in the Bible it says you needed to be compatible.
Okay.
does it say that?
Do you want me to pull up scripture?
Yeah.
Do you want me to
Where
back it
does
up with the word? No,
compatibility-
it doesn't first say says.
Because here's my thing. And when I say
'cause
compatibility,
I got scripture.
I've been doing marriage counseling and stuff for a long time.
So that qualifies
And
you because you've been doing it?
But let me ask my
No,
question.
go ahead.
Or answer the question. But compatibility is always subjective. You know what I'm saying? It's subjective. I really believe anybody can be married to anybody if you're mature enough to understand that I'm a different person than you. I think differently, and you respect the fact that I'm different.
Yeah.
Right? So, and for instance, there's a couple, and I can't remember
I
their
think
name.
Sequoia was going to have a thought.
She can have her thought in a second.
happening
But there's a
today?
couple that I can't remember their names, but one of them is a
No more
staunch
coffee.
Republican, and the other one's a staunch Democrat. And they get on TV and argue
Yeah.
about politics. I can't remember their name for the life of me. But I'm thinking, and they're married to each other, and I'm thinking, how do earth do y'all, because I mean, they be going at it about politics. They were going at it for the last 4 years with our previous president. I mean, they were just going at it. And
They
I
should
thought,
still be going
oh
at
my
it.
gosh, how do they do that? How are they married?
Let's just
And-
argue. The whole world. Oh, God.
And I just thought it was so interesting that they were able to separate what their views were from their actual relationship. Because somebody had their kids on and they were just talking about them and how, yeah, we don't talk like that at home. This is their job. This is what they do. And I really feel like
I know who you're talking
compatibility.
about.
Do you know the
I
couple,
know who
the
you're
bald
talking
guy?
about.
And, yeah.
I know who you're talking
But
about.
compatibility is so subjective, and it really depends on what's important to you. What is really important to you? So when we come back, we're going to keep talking about dating in the 21st century. What does compatibility have to do with it? What does love really have to do with it? So please stay tuned. You're watching The Vantage Point.
Did you know that when you are quiet, your voice is missing to God's ears? I know some of us have prayed and we're wondering, how long should I pray about this? Why should I pray if God already knows? How will I know God is answering? And what do I do when I feel like God's not listening? But God is listening for your voice. It's too quiet in this world for the troubles we have. You have to raise your voice, and God wants to hear from you. It's Too Quiet, a book about prayer, is designed to answer your prayer questions and build your faith. Visit presstopray.com.
Disaster tips from the objects left behind.
My home wasn't insured, but you can check your insurance policy now to make sure you're covered. Oh,
My savings are lost, but you can put money aside and plan for unexpected disaster costs.
we're lost forever, but you can scan important documents now so they survive.
For more tips on how to prepare, visit ready.gov.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out."
Welcome back. We're talking dating in the 21st century. I kind of want to lead in this next part of the conversation talking about what are real deal breakers for relationship. Like, what is a real, honest because we talked earlier about compatibility being subjective, and again, love and respect for the other person kind of helps with that. Because I don't know that I think me and my husband are, if you say compatible, I think we're compatible, but we are very different. And I think that's okay. Different is okay. But I think we respect each other enough to appreciate and respect each other's differences. But what are real deal breakers when you talk about dating? So I had taught a class at a camp some years ago and gave the kids a survey. And I want to say 45%, I think it was 45% of the class was in an abusive relationship.
Dang, I remember you telling me.
And they were teenagers.
Yeah.
So they weren't married, but they're in what they consider abusive relationships. So what are real deal breakers? Because I think when you're dating someone, you think marriage is going to fix something. And marriage doesn't fix anything. It doesn't hide who you are, it exposes who you are. And so, when you think, he'll change, or she'll change when we get married, that doesn't really happen. And the things that I think you look at as red flags. So I guess the question I'm asking is, what are the real red flags people should be looking for? Not whether or not you have the same fitness goals. I don't know if that would be a red flag, but what are real red flags? Because I think people need to know what's realistic.
I think even though, a fitness goal may not necessarily be a red flag to me, but if I was into fitness like that and they were completely not.
Like they're on 600-pound life.
Yeah, that would. No shade to the plus size community.
Shout out.
Yes,
It is what it is.
Right.
Right now.
Tickle, baby.
But for me, that would be a deal breaker with me.
But then why even start if
Well,
it's
why would
already
you,
a deal breaker?
why would you even start a relationship?
Okay, well, let's back up because we said dating.
I just wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me put some parameters around here. I do believe I probably wouldn't even be interested in dating a man that I wasn't attracted to.
Sure.
So we'll just move that off the table. Let's say I was attracted to that person, and I started to get to know them, and then that's how you find out what you do have in common and what you don't have in common. I think dating in the church, I have been on a date or two previous to the last 4 years. We'll give that prefaces. But anyway, one of the deal breakers to me is when you're in the conversation and they're trying to, I would say, see how saved you are. And let me give you an example. I don't drink, right? And the topic of drinking came up with this person that I was talking to. And
Oh, wow, we know who it is,
he
Chris.
said, how do you feel about drinking? Do you drink? And I'm like, no, I'm saved. We don't drink. He said, well, I drink on special occasions. That's a deal breaker for me because I don't drink, and I don't think saved people do drink. So that's a deal breaker for me. But his logic behind it, for a special occasion, I was like, what if I think every time I get my paycheck, it's a special occasion? But again, my point is, you don't find out that kind of stuff until you start having these conversations. Do you continue dating? No. I think where we get in trouble when it comes to dating is we ignore the things that get on our nerves.
Yeah.
Or we say, oh, I can tolerate that. Oh, no. I don't know what it is, but when you go from dating to marriage, everything is magnified. It's like, well, I wore my hair like this when we was dating. Y'all really didn't like it then. I wish you had told me. Because I plan on wearing my hair, But I think dating it's important not to ignore, not just the red flags and deal breakers, but don't think, oh, I'll change, or he's going to change, or I can tolerate that, because to me, it just grows, And I don't want to ramble on that, but my whole point is, some things you don't find out until you date or until you have that conversation. And everybody's definition of dating is different. Wayne Rogers.
Wayne doesn't believe in dating.
Her husband doesn't believe in dating.
At all.
But I don't know what you call the time you meet them in between getting married.
Well, his thought is one, you first go to God and say, is this somebody I even need to waste my time with? Because if it's a no, then you just move on. Because again, God knows the heart of a person. You don't
that's
know
so
that.
deep, girl.
You'll never know that.
I'm dating.
And I don't care. You don't really know somebody until you live with them.
That's
you do
true.
not know them. And so again,
oh, girl.
I figure, why not ask the God who knows them versus what they're trying to show me? Because people will show you what they want you to see.
Yeah.
But I believe God knows the heart of man, and that he can absolutely tell you if this is, he said, sitting in the driveway of some girl, he's like, I'm not even your son, and you told me she wasn't the one. He told me. Before I even went in her house, he told me she was not the one. And he's like, I'm gonna make her the one. And she took him through all kind of changes. And so I just believe God he knows. He doesn't want you to be hurt.
I guess, so do y'all call it courting?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So
that's
it's the
what
same
it's
thing.
called.
I'm sorry.
It's not the same thing. It's very different.
corrected dating.
It's dating with a purpose.
It's dating with the knowledge that I'm going to marry this person.
And that's it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Christians date to marry,
I
right?
understand that, kind of.
So the question was, what are red flags, right? Okay.
I cannot.
I think everybody's red flags are different.
Yeah.
Especially deal breakers, because there's a whole host of things that should be deal breakers that obviously aren't. No, seriously, like abuse or I think by the time somebody can abuse you, though, you're already in emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so
Yeah.
entangled. It doesn't
Yeah.
start like that typically day one. But I don't know. I think deal breakers are really personal. And I was trying to think back to anybody I talked to before my husband. How could I even remember?
I remember.
Yeah, I know you do. And I'm sure there were some deal breakers there. They were jerks or just, I didn't talk to
Well,
that
I think
many
anybody
guys,
that
but-
makes you
That's
feel
probably why we shouldn't just let it go.
Okay, here's a deal breaker.
anybody that makes you feel less than.
Yeah.
Because everybody was
You know
a
what I'm
jerk.
saying? You don't want to be with somebody who puts you down,
Of course.
talks down to you. That marriage isn't going to change that.
Yeah.
That's just who they are. And so even if they talk down to other people, you know what I mean? You really need to just watch. How do they deal with their mother? How do they deal with their sisters? Again, I feel like a man who don't love his mama, there ain't no way he's gonna love you more than he love his mama, because she birthed him. So, you watch how they treat people. You watch how they treat their parents. Watch how they treat their siblings. Watch just how they treat people in general. If they're not a kind person, think about that.
One of the biggest red flags to me is you don't want to talk to my pastor, or you don't want the pastor to know that we're dating. I will never date anybody again that I'm a little bit torn with this. Somebody was like, well, what if you get married again and they don't want to go to your church? Well, then he ain't the one, baby, because that's the red flag for me, because I'm not letting nobody take me out of my church. I'm being serious. I'm being very serious. Like, I'm not leaving my church, and I think that, I don't know. Well, I'm not going to say I know. I just know that's a deal breaker for me. I'm not leaving my pastors. I think that the last time I got in trouble, this is me. Everybody got their own thing. But I think, and I'm not saying, oh, you just got to be in love with my pastors and all of this stuff, but I think they watch for my soul.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, I think certain people are planted in certain congregations. Just my opinion. That's a big red flag for me. I'm going to say, no, you don't want to be? Oh, okay.
I think, and this is way lighter than anything you guys are talking about. But,
Well, then why? This
no,
is a
I haven't even
serious
said it yet.
conversation. Go ahead.
But I was thinking about just back in the day, and somebody, I wouldn't say I dated, but we went out a few times and stuff. And I just remember being bored. And I never felt like, but they were a nice person. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They're nice looking, they're well accomplished, and I just was not into them. I mean, it was one of those things you could have tried to make to work on paper, and everybody would be like, yeah, that's great. But you made a statement that
Did they not have any personality?
No, it's not that. They just.
Then what was it?
I don't know. They were just way too calm for me. Like, I need.
Girl, I'm about to
my
start
husband is so random and weird-ish sometimes, and I like that. But when I found myself not wanting,
Y'all compatible.
not caring if they're like calling, or I was like, yeah, this isn't a real thing. And I heard you say in the first segment that marriage, you can make marriage work with anyone.
If you want to.
And I think that's probably true-ish, maybe. You
It's
said
okay
if
to
they're
disagree
mature.
with her.
And but I don't think you can make it work well necessarily. Like
It depends on what well looks like.
I think
Somebody might want to be married to somebody boring.
I can suffice being married to
can't
you,
do it.
so I can check a box and say I'm married.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of when I think of that person. Like everybody, I'm telling you, everybody would have been excited. They would have been like, oh, that's great. And I would have been like, yeah, I'm bored for the rest of my life, but he will work and pay the bills and he'll be nice.
And
I don't want to do that.
And
It's just
I
not
think you
fun.
have to think about that. You know, you don't want to just get married for the sake of getting married.
Yeah.
I would hate for anybody to do that, just to say I got somebody.
Or because you're young in the church and your hormones are all over the place and you want to get married. Because I know a lot of people that did that.
Yeah.
Got married because they wanted to be able to have sex.
The flesh will get you married,
Baby.
but it won't keep you married.
Baby.
you
You hear me?
Not doing that as much as you would
I
like
know a
to
lot of
think.
people that did that, honey. And they went through. You hear me? You got to be compatible.
Yeah, but I like I said, compatibility is subjective. I've met some folks, and I'm thinking, how on the world did y'all get married?
And I think
Who are
compatibility
you?
doesn't
I'm just
mean
like, wow.
It doesn't mean we do the same things. It means we fit well together.
Exactly.
So that's just, I mean,
But
that's just
again,
my
that
definition,
looks
but
different for everybody.
You know why I
It
like
looks
Wayne?
different from everybody.
Because he knows how to rein you in. I've seen you be good. I love Jennifer Rogers. I love Jennifer Rogers.
What? I can't. But I do believe
Y'all are compatible for
that,
real.
that, you know, marriage, you don't want to just check a box off. You don't want to just do it. You don't want to be pressured into it.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it because, oh my gosh, you're over 30 and now you need to get married to somebody. Because the
All my
couple that
friends
we
are
interviewed,
married and blah, blah, blah.
yeah, talked
Yeah.
about, one of the reasons they dated in private was because of the pressure of the church. And the pressure, they didn't want to be rushed into something they weren't ready for.
This was an interview?
And they knew they weren't ready for it. And they
You
knew they
recorded
needed
it?
time. And I thought, that is so smart, because if people don't know, they don't know to pressure
They don't know what to do. That's right.
They don't know what to
That's
pressure you.
right.
So again, we're doing the Singles Conference February 11th and 12th. If you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. You must be 25 years old, though, because that's a whole nother thing. But please, you can go to turningpointfwc.com, click on the For Singles tab to sign up. And thank you so much for watching The Vantage Point. Take care.